Today is October 28th, 2025, and we are in Houston, Texas. I am Jacob King, and I'm here interviewing Anita Guevara for CEER's Hurricane Heroines Oral History Project. Before we begin, I must ask, are you okay with this interview being recorded and saved for the project archives?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So I was wondering if you could go ahead and begin by telling us about your early life growing up in Houston and your experiences with the environment.
I I didn't grow up in Houston. I grew up in Corpus Christi. I was born in Corpus Christi. I grew up there. I came to Houston when I was 22 years old. By that time, I was married and had a young child, a baby. And as far as the environment, I didn't know much of what was going on with the environment, other than at times there was in the news talking about air quality, but I didn't pay much attention to all that at that time. But later, I started learning a little bit, and I paid attention to see what it was about and how it affected people. And sometimes I learned that it involved, like for instance, people that had upper respiratory problems and things like that. And then over the years, I started learning a little bit more, and I don't know everything yet. I'm still learning, as old as I am, but that's I don't have too much to add to environment problems from that time.
When you did live in Houston, which Houston area disaster storm impacted you the most, and what was your reaction at the time?
I was never impacted by storms until, of course, there were storms, but nothing like the storm in 2001. I think it was in, I don't remember what month. We had our area was flooded at that time. That was the first flood I was in, but there had been others in the neighborhood. I lived in the higher part of the neighborhood, so anytime the neighborhood was flooded, it didn't reach our house to where water came up, not even to the yard. Until 2001, we had like 2 feet of water in the house. And that was Alicia, maybe? I think it was Alicia. And that was the first flood I was in. And of course, it was devastating to me. I remember we were outside and we saw helicopters coming to rescue people that were sick down the street, and I wanted them to pick us up too. But it didn't happen. We were, our neighbors got a little boat and took us out at that time, and that was in 2001. But after that, everything was better. It took a while for us to fix our house and everything. At that time, it was just FEMA that gave us some help, but not much. I had to make a loan to get my house fixed. Along with, I didn't have flood insurance at that time. And it took us a while to fix our house, but luckily I had nephews that had the knowledge of remodeling and stuff, so that's how we got out of that one.
What do you feel gets left out when talking about the experiences women go through in climate disasters?
Well, I think that there's a lot of things that are left out. For instance, what I experienced that year, that in 2001, was that FEMA hired people from outside that were not very knowledgeable about how to go about the inspections, and some people had received a lot more from FEMA than others. Even people that didn't own their houses received more from FEMA than people that did. And I'm not sure how that happened. I think it was because the people handling that was, like I said, was randomly hired, maybe, and they didn't have enough experience at what to look at and to look at what the family needed. My kids were young at that time. They were young kids, and they didn't consider enough of what we needed to get back on our feet from that disaster. I don't hardly remember everything that happened, but I know that it took a long time for us to get back our feet. But thanks to my nephews that were the ones that rebuilt our houses.
Could you talk about your experience during Hurricane Harvey?
I think Hurricane Harvey was worse. I think it was, it made more damages in the houses than that first flood did. There was more help after Hurricane Harvey because there was different organizations that were out there trying to help people. I didn't get much from FEMA at Harvey. I didn't get much from FEMA, but thank God I did have flood insurance. I got some from them, and but thanks to organizations that came in, and the first one, they didn't approve me for an organization to help me at first, and they did my son's house because my son is on disability, and he qualified right away, but I didn't. I had just retired 2-3 years before, and I still worked a little bit, but I guess that's the reason that I didn't qualify. But later, an organization that was fairly new took over my house, and they were the ones that that worked on my house. Baker Ripley had turned me down right away. I went in person and applied with Baker Ripley, but they turned me down. But at the end, they came in and helped the organization that was working in my house because there was so much damage. And so thank God my house was fixed. And there was still people around me that didn't get help. I think that, I don't know, for some reason things get overlooked because there's people that needs it more than others. And I feel like some of those people were left behind when they needed the most. And I'm not sure how that happens.
You talked about FEMA and not being able to get any funding from it. I was wondering if you could describe your relationship with organizations like FEMA and just the differences you notice within the community.
I never asked FEMA for much. I remember when, after Hurricane Beryl and derecho, that we were without lights for several days. We were advised to apply for FEMA, and I believe it was $750 that they were allowing families that went through this time without lights. And they turned me down. I'm not sure why, because the whole neighborhood had been without lights for several days, and everybody got $750 right away. It took like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and they received money. But I had to call them and ask them why they hadn't approved my application, and they said because I didn't have any damages, I didn't lose anything, and everybody else around me had, and how could they say that I didn't? And I didn't get anything, but months later, they finally sent me a check. About 6 months later, I had given up on them, but they did send $750. But I don't know what, I had to get they asked me to get a letter from Centerpoint stating that I did lose, that I was without lights for several days. But nothing happened even after that, until about 6 months later, after I had given up on them.
Okay. What role do you see women like yourself playing in addressing climate change?
I'm not sure what to answer.
Like talking about like the work you do, and like what role do you see women like yourself doing in addressing this issue?
I try to participate in letting people know what's going on and what we should do to improve our community. And I get involved in everything that I can, like for instance, in advising people about weatherizing their homes and different things like that, and involve themselves more in doing like recycling. I think that a lot of people don't think about just throwing away trash anywhere that's gonna affect the environment, like or some people get trash together and burn it instead of throwing it in disposing of it properly. And especially recycling. I get after parts of my family tell me, hey, this is recycling. Clean it up and put it in recycle, and things like that, because I think that helps the environment. And I try to follow rules the way they should be followed, and try to teach people that a lot of people don't really know about environment. Like, I'm not an expert in it. I'm learning. I have a lot to learn yet about that, and so I get involved in everything that I can.
What relationship do you have with local community organizations like CEER during times of extreme weather, and how does that impact your decisions in leading and organizing your family and community during these times?
Well, as far as my family, I try to always remind them of the work we are doing with CEER. When I started getting involved with CEER, I had to learn what it was about, and what kind of work we were going to be doing, and trying to have people, try to have more people get involved in learning about what we do. And I try to invite people to come in and listen to what we have to offer. And as far as in my family, like I said, I try to remind them to do the right things for the community. We try to, when I see people trying to open the doors of their cars and just throw the trash in the parking lots and stuff like that, I feel like running, hey, don't do that. But then you can't, because you don't know what kind of people you're dealing with. But I try to follow what I'm trying to learn here with CEER.
All right, Anita, this is my final question for you. What lesson or message would you like audiences to take away from listening to your story?
Wow. What lessons? Well, like I said, there's a lot people can learn when they get involved. Because if you don't get involved in things like organizations to learn what we do in different organizations, I mean, you don't know what's going on. I myself need to learn more. and I would say everybody needs to get involved in some organization, or attend some meetings to learn what's going on, because there's a lot of people that don't know what's out there, what the organizations have to offer to make it better in their lives. So I would advise people to get involved more.
Thank you so much, Anita. That wraps it up. And yeah, I'm going to close out. Anything, last thing you want to say to the camera?
Well, I hope that whoever listens to what I have to say starts getting more involved, and maybe we'll get to meet more people. And because I welcome the opportunities that we've had to have a chance to learn more and teach other people to come and join us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anita.